Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. This is the RTM Public Works Committee meeting for this Thursday, January 9th at 7:30 p.m. We have a quorum. Our note taker secretary this evening is Patrick Parr. And just to reiterate our policy, which is similar, or dissimilar rather, from a number, probably almost all of the committees, we do not have a permanent secretary per se. What we do is we set up an alphabetical list, and by last name, as we go through the meetings and the list, each person serves as secretary for a meeting. This year, we set up the list where the alphabetical list is by last name, however, it's going in reverse order of the alphabet, okay? Because, you know, we can't keep always going from the top down. We have to mix it up a little bit. We'll go from the bottom
That's
up.
exciting, Ralph.
I know, I can tell you, I can tell you're motivated. I can tell you're motivated.
This meeting, just because I knew you'd bring
Okay.
something special.
So, looking at the list, Patrick's on tonight, Carolyn is on deck for the next meeting.
The next meeting is the 13th of February?
Yes,
we
I believe
go.
that is
Yes.
correct.
Here it comes.
Oh, I don't think
Don't do that.
you can make that, okay. All right, I'm just gonna pass around a piece of paper, and if you'd all just put your names down, if you're present here this evening, for the record.
I can't make anything after the 13th. I'm headed to New Zealand.
Going to New Zealand.
My
Oh,
daughter is
goodness.
having a baby, so.
And she's in New Zealand?
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Wow. Okay, so call to order, we've done that, I think. I'd just like to mention a few things that are happening. I know this is outside of the agenda, but these are things that I think you should be aware of. As you know, of course, we have the next upcoming meeting. Actually, I'd like to ask that we double check the date on that meeting.
Was it the 13th?
I have it as a 13.
You are correct, yeah, 13th, 7:30 p.m. That is our meeting with Ed Gentile. Okay, and as I think if anybody who got the emails, I'm sorry for these email problems, but I reached out to him to try and meet with him beforehand, actually for today's meeting, to go over the budget beforehand, and he's basically responded and said, well, the budget's already been submitted, so if you want to meet beforehand and have a discussion about the budget, we're going to have to meet sooner than that in the future. But the cat's,
When does he submit the budget?
he submitted
You
it,
said December, right?
yeah, at the, I believe he said it was by the end of December, he had that submitted.
We don't even have, we
Yeah, I
had
know.
one meeting
I
with
always
weather,
did.
right?
We had one, yeah, it was like our first meeting was like I think the 12th or something of December, okay?
We'd have to frankly do it at the end of the prior session.
Well, that's why, I'm bringing it up because, yeah, if we want to have a voice prior to his assembling his budget, then we're going to have to do something like in September or October.
Yeah, this session.
Yeah.
The end of-
You know,
latter part of this session.
Yeah, and get to him before he really finalizes his budget and submits it.
There's no harm in getting our act together
Sounds all right.
early in the session. Nothing changes, right? Nothing's changing between now and September. No reason we can't go ahead and meet. We'll talk about next year.
Sure.
Because it's high level, right? It's not any particular item, probably.
Okay, make sure you sign in, there's a piece of paper going around.
Going around.
So, from what I could see looking at the calendar, I'm leaning towards a September meeting. I think we have a meeting date already scheduled for September 11th. Okay, and so I'm gonna pursue that with Ed, that, I mean, we're gonna meet in February and that'll be fine. But to have a voice beforehand, not after the fact, that, I'm looking for that September meeting to fill that role for the
So this is
committee.
a regular meeting in September, you'll
Yeah.
just pull in.
At this point, yeah, let's say I'm earmarking that as to be a meeting with Ed about the upcoming, what would that be? 25, 26
Should you,
calendar fiscal year?
should you first ask him what his thoughts on the budget?
I
Because if
I'll
he
have
says
that
he starts on a
conversation.
budget in
Yeah, he says, well, that's a
October.
damn starting, well, then, all right, that's
Yeah.
maybe a little too early.
But don't you want to catch him before he really gets?
Well, yeah,
far into
I
it?
definitely want to catch him before he gets too deep in the weeds, no question about that. Okay, so I'll have to feel him out on that. Again, my own feeling is that September 11th makes sense. Because come October, I think he's gonna be very busy putting it together in October. And to get a voice in beforehand, I think the September window makes more sense. That's just the feeling that I have. Because he'll be busy the end of October and into November, going through the real deep information to have that ready for the December submit. Because he has to go through that with Zagrodsky and our finance.
Well, we've struggled for
Department
years
of
to find a
Finance.
way to have some input
Yeah,
at an early enough stage.
Yeah, and I
That
think-
it can actually have an impact on the priorities that are selected.
yeah.
So I think if we give him that, even if he hasn't started work, it's probably even better.
Yeah. So that's, I'm gonna have to follow up and have that discussion with him. And then I'm gonna reconfirm with him that we are gonna meet in February. And so that's that. Does anybody have any question about that at all at this time?
Just remind me, who's setting the priorities, Ed or the first selectman?
And first selectman, for the budget?
Yeah.
Well, I think ultimately, it's the first selectman.
So,
It's
shouldn't
the
we?
board of selectmen.
Right,
Yeah,
but shouldn't we
Board of
meet with
Selectmen.
them or him? Isn't that more impactful than meeting with Ed?
Well, we can always, I think the purpose of us meeting with Ed is to just get an idea of what he's got in the budget. And what he thinks are, the key components of the budget that he wants to see happen. And, if we want to take that up at the Board of Selectmen, we can certainly do that. We can go to the Board of Selectmen, they're gonna have hearings, public hearings, and we can show up as members of the public. We can either show up as just citizens or representing the Public Works Committee and our sentiments about the budget. And express that directly to the Board of Selectmen before they reconcile and vote on the budget and before they submit to the Board of Finance.
And
Okay.
Ed has been very transparent with us.
Say what?
Ed has been very transparent with us in the past, but hey, I hear what you want to do. That's not been put on my short list by the Board of Selectmen, whether it was Jamie Stevenson or John Zagrodsky or Martha McNally. He's been very clear with us, hey, I appreciate your input and I'm glad to hear it, but ultimately he's been clear he takes his marching orders from the first
Yeah.
selectmen. So,
He's made that very clear.
yeah, so, and which is legitimate, so.
Japanese garden.
To the extent that he says, okay, you need to bump this up a level for me, we can do that.
So to the extent we want to have input at this stage, given he's submitted a budget, is that public process the only real way to do it?
Yeah, that would be our best window of opportunities to express ourselves about the budget, and that would be to the Board of Selectmen.
Unless we want to vote against a component of the budget, whatever that means, right? Yeah.
Any other questions about this?
Glad the heat's working.
I've been in this room many, many times, I've never heard that.
We did it as well.
I sent around an email or forwarded an email that originated from Jack Davis, where apparently the process and schedule that they're following this budget season is going to be slightly different than what they've done in the past. Okay, I'll just read it briefly. Town administrator's budget will be presented differently than in years past. On Tuesday, January 21st, 8 a.m., during the Board of Selectmen meeting, a high-level presentation of the budget will be made. There will be no discussion. On Wednesday, January 22nd, the full budget should be available on OpenGov.
Sorry, what day is that?
Wednesday, January 22nd, full budget should be available on OpenGov. All right, are you all aware, and they're all familiar with OpenGov?
No.
Yeah, I was just gonna say as a resounding answer there. There is a link in the town website, opengov.com, I think it is. And
.gov?
you can then
It
go
is
in.
.com, actually.
Is it?
Yeah,
OpenGov.com.
Yeah, OpenGov, yeah, it's like a service that holds all this information for not just the town of Darien, but many other towns as well. And you can go into the town of Darien, and then you can start to drill down on all the various departments. I mean, certainly the Public Works has its own section within the budget, and we can drill down on that through OpenGov. I'll try and assemble like an order of, whatever, clicking, if you will, to follow in order to get to that destination, so you can have a chance to look at it yourself. You can create reports, and you can print out reports from there about not just Public Works, but you can look at other things as well within the town of Darien. You know, the education, that's totally separate from OpenGov. They have their own budget system, totally apart. So I'll try and do that and get that all out to you, for those of you who have an interest to take a look and have a, whatever, preview of the details prior to our meeting with Ed. Okay, so OpenGov.com to committee. Okay, let me just finish what this is saying here. Full discussion of the proposed Board of Selectmen Town Administrator's budget will occur February 3rd through February 5th. I do not have the schedule of areas to be reviewed at that time. F&B is assigning our team members to various parts of the budget. As in the past, we will work with your committee and the Board of Finance to review the final Board of Selectmen budget. So this is gonna happen pretty fast.
The 3rd through the 5th is a Monday through a Wednesday. If
Yeah.
It is.
Understanding. So if you want, so as I recall in past years, one of the big meetings was on a Saturday. Mark, am I remembering that right? So at least part of the process was available to people who work?
It used to be more than 3 days, it did straddle a weekend.
Right.
The intent was, yes, so more people could participate, now it's weekdays.
Yeah, it seems to be getting compressed here. Please let me or Jen C, that's Jen Charneski, let me or Jen know if you do not have access to OpenGov. So any of you who have an interest but do not presently have access to OpenGov, let me know so I can get you set up. Okay?
These presentations are long, if I recall. Each department's different, but they're an hour.
Plus.
For each
Well,
department.
the presentations are multiple hours. Any department could be an hour. I can't remember Public Works, how long, but.
Right. So I have Ian on the list. Is there anybody else who does not have an identity for OpenGov that would want to have one?
I don't think I have one.
All right, are you interested?
Absolutely. How would I not be
Goodness.
interested?
How do we know if we have an
How do we
identity?
know if we have an identity?
Well,
I don't have one then.
You would know because
If you don't know.
it's coming.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
have one.
Yeah.
I would remember the
Probably don't have
experience.
one either.
are you interested?
Yeah, I would look at that.
All right.
I can't think it's available to the general public if they're posting.
Well,
without-
right, that's-
it's like, why do you need a
Yeah,
lot?
I mean,
Right.
you,
You need an ID.
yeah, you have to have a
It's a
password, an ID and a
service, you need an
password
ID.
to get in there. You
Yeah,
can't,
do you?
Just
it's
poking
not
on
just
their,
open.
on OpenGov's core like website, no, it's not, there's not like a create an account. You got, it's
So
like
it's
an
not really
service
open,
from
Joe.
us.
It's
Yeah,
kind of
it's,
like,
Because on that premise, you can just go into any
Yes,
town and see
semi-open
everything.
gatekeeper gov, I like that.
Which,
Well,
once-
Yeah, well,
Semi-
I wasn't sure how.
which once
public it is.
once the
Right,
budget's
right.
adopted, it's
Then,
public, but the
Yeah.
kind of the workings.
Right, there's like two versions, one that's in the works and then the one that's finalized and then available to everybody.
It
Okay.
tracks each iteration. Department head recommendations, I think, is in there. Town administrator certainly.
This was the massive spreadsheet
Board
you guys threw up
selection,
on the screen
Board of
last year.
Finance.
That was a
Well,
segment of it.
I don't think.
The massive spreadsheet, I believe, was for capital expenditures, which is kind of a separate thing from the operating budget. In fact, it is separate from the operating budget. Okay, this is strictly operating budget.
Got it, my point was that I thought we were accessing it through OpenGov, not the details in the spreadsheet.
Okay, well, I have three people. Anybody else who is an interest?
I'll reach out. I think I may have one, but
If
if I
not,
don't,
then
I'll
let me
you
know, okay? Okay?
Yeah, if you think you have it, test it.
Yeah,
guess
I think they expired.
Either they expire, or you forget how to do it in your
We have to wait till the smoke starts coming out now.
Okay, let me just finish this here. I did not have the schedule of areas to be reviewed at this time. F&B is assigning our team members of various parts of the budget, and blah, blah, blah. Let me or Jen C know. By the way, the Board of Selectmen meeting will precede the quarterly department head meetings, which will immediately follow that meeting. So get your coffee or tea. And a comfy chair to watch early moving TV. Jack, thank you. Okay. I'll forward an email that came through just recently regarding the Board of Selectmen has drafted a set of guidelines for off-cycle funding requests. Okay, and we've had several of them this year. And so, it would apply for both operating budgets and capital expenditures. So they're trying to set up a series of, what would we call them? Hurdles or tests to be cleared to consider an off-cycle funding request. And some of them, are pretty obvious. I'll read just the first one, which I'm sure you would all agree is pretty obvious. Response to a natural disaster or damage to town of Darien property requiring immediate repair. Okay, so that's the first one on the list, but they have a list here of 9 different conditions or scenarios that would have to be cleared for the Board of Selectmen to then entertain an off-cycle request for funding.
Is there a catch-all at the end or something?
Catch-all at the end.
Something we didn't think about, but we still want to spend money. Yeah.
Something that does not fit into the anything above.
All right, so for an item that does not meet the above guidance, an item can be brought forward at the discretion of the town administrator.
It's like you knew it was there.
Yeah, Mark's been around quite a while, so he knows how it goes.
So Rolf, those have just been presented, nothing's been adopted.
I'd have to go back and read Jack's email, but I know this has been drafted.
This was Monday's presentation.
Yeah, I don't know if it's been actually adopted and voted on yet by the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, I was gonna ask who's
But
adjudicating this?
it is something, well, I know that this was inspired, if you will, by John Zagrodsky, okay? I would suspect that it's gonna be voted on if it hasn't already in the near future. Okay, but this is a policy that they wanna follow. Okay, but I'll forward this around to everybody.
So how's this handled now? There is no.
Well, now, we've just had a lot of people just come forward and say, we need money.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
I think
What triggered it was
the past
the-
practice was to not have off-cycle requests.
Yeah,
That's
that's
the
not a
goal.
good thing.
Yeah, so I guess I'm of two minds about this. Like, it's good to have a policy, but in general, we should, like, our ideal is not to have 0 events that meet these criteria.
Yes, if everybody adhered to the budget, then this whatever, guideline policy,
Well, I think what
Might
triggered
not
it
be
though
necessary.
was the fire truck that came
you
up.
think that put it over the top?
I think just a lot of questions about why we're doing an off-cycle funding, and then the next funding request was, that was off-cycle, why are we doing another one? You know,
Yeah.
So I think it's just sort of triggered.
Yeah.
It's probably
The one that came
smart
up
to
most
have a
recently
policy.
that involved Public Works was the 2 FTE requests that Ed
Mhm.
came to us with.
Yes,
And those two are pretty close to each other,
yeah.
So,
right after the budget had been,
yeah, it wasn't long after.
no,
Yeah.
no. It was between then and now, so, yeah,
Okay.
right, that was June.
One last thing just from my notes. Last night I dialed in on the Rules Committee meeting, and it was through a Zoom connection, okay? And Mark, you were at the meeting, okay? Now, did I come up on this screen here?
You were there. You were in and out.
Well, I
But you-
purposely cut off the video because I was actually having some dinner while I was listening to the meeting, and I didn't think it would be good for me to be on screen, chewing away on a hamburger. But this technology now opens up the possibility that standing committee meetings could have hybrid type meetings. So it's very possible that a half a dozen people could be in this room, and a half a dozen people could be up on the screen through Zoom, And it is acceptable that if you come into the meeting via Zoom, you can't do it by mobile phone, you could vote with the committee, both the people that are here in this room, as well as the people that are online through Zoom, okay? Now, I hope not to come into this room and be sitting here by myself, okay? Okay? So, I think it certainly makes sense that, you know, people who travel on business, someone who's recovering from an illness, that sort of thing, it makes imminent sense, okay? But ultimately, I still would like to see us all meet in person, okay? I should be getting a briefing next week from Mike Weaver. All standing committee heads are gonna be invited to go to this briefing to learn how it works, okay? And
So this is happening, or this is?
this is happening, yeah.
Okay.
He's amazing.
So it's conceivable that with our next meeting with Ed, I don't know if we want to do it with him, I prefer to meet with Ed in person, but if not that meeting, then certainly the March meeting, we could very possibly be doing a hybrid meeting, okay?
Does the meeting have to be posted as hybrid to do that, or?
Yes,
any
yes,
meeting can be
when,
that?
you know, you've gotten those warnings,
Mhm.
and so the warning will have new wording added to it, that, yeah, this is available by Zoom as well. You know, it'll say that it's meeting in room 119, but also available by Zoom, and there'll be the link to Zoom and the meeting number ID and all that sort of thing.
Will this include the RTM meetings?
I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna take it. Yeah,
It's the only way they can pump attendance back up.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know that it's any room other than this room.
see, I don't know that either. I don't know if it's in room 206 or town hall,
Because he used,
this screen.
and that equipment. We don't have that
So this
equipment.
is very specific.
I inferred that, he didn't say that. but-
Okay, all right. Mark's choosing his words very carefully, yeah, I understand. Okay. So that'll give you a little preview of what,
This was how it was obviously during COVID, right? These committee meetings were 100% hybrid, right? Or
That's different.
100% Zoom.
yeah, that was, but that
They
was.
were voting and
that
all
was-
that going on then.
That was all Zoom, okay?
There was no.
There was no, you know, some
Right.
people in a meeting room and
Right.
some people on Zoom. This is that kind of capability, this,
And that was done under like the public health emergency authorization.
yeah, there was special authorization for the state to do that, that's correct. But it worked. Yeah, it worked, it was a little clumsy, but it worked.
Would the voting be by raising your hand, or like when we did it during COVID, you pushed a button and it registered your vote?
No, we'll have to see what Zoom has available, and I'll ask that question in the briefing. You know, if we want to take a vote, can their votes be casted through Zoom, or do we just do it visually with them on the screen going, okay?
And there's a way you can raise your hand
Yeah,
in Zoom.
yeah, yeah.
it's a
This is
function.
brand new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the meetings that have been held this way, everyone was in the room. Only Ralph was on them.
Yeah, it was a little weird. It really was a little weird, but it worked.
For everybody.
Okay. In your warning, I sent out another copy of the Freedom of Information Act filing minute deadline information. You know, we're voting, this was not the case in our last meeting, but we will have meetings where we're going to be voting on the important issues, resolutions and expenditures, budgets, etc. And those votes have to be registered with the town clerk within 48 hours, 48 working hours, okay? Now, we have our meetings on a Thursday, the town hall is closed on a Friday, so, you know, if we get that in there by Tuesday, we're okay, all right? But I just mentioned this because, you know, we're all serving in a secretarial capacity, so be aware of that deadline because Krista's quite sensitive about it, okay? Okay, review and vote to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. I sent the minutes out with the alert, the warning of this meeting. Does anybody have any comments, corrections, additions, subtractions that were not covered in the meeting minutes? If so, speak up.
Move to adopt.
Okay, I have a move to adopt
Second.
the meetings. I have a second from Frank Edelman. All those in favor of adopting the minutes from last meeting, raise your hands.
Forgot,
Thank
can you
you.
vote if you weren't here?
Yes, you
Yes.
can.
Yes.
Is there
Okay.
a Zoom button we can press to vote?
A little clapping hand.
A little confetti.
Rob, do you need someone to record the vote for you? You have a sheet over there? Oh, you do?
Patrick is our,
Vote?
Yeah, I'm the guy.
You're on it?
he's the man.
Well, I don't have a voting sheet.
Well, you can, as long as the minutes have it, you can create it after.
It's unanimous.
It was unanimous. so-
Yeah, it was unanimous.
Unanimous.
so
I think I can remember
I
that.
think we're all right.
I'll make a note of it.
Okay. Also in the attachment with the warning, I sent out this email that came from Jack Kemp, Frank Kemp and Jack Davis regarding the standing committee scope document for both primary and secondary assignments. I hope you all received that and have had a chance to look at it. So I'd just like to go over that this evening because they're expecting me to get back to them. This came up in the Rules Committee meeting last night. Because they want to start to move on this. This also has a relationship to Appendix B, but that will be coming later. That's a work in process right now. So the planning and zoning, Public Works, primary and secondary responsibilities. So we are primary on the Advisory Committee on Sustainability, Sewer Commission, Parking, Public Works, grants, although there are none identified at this time, that Public Works related grants. Public Works capital expenditures, parking lot administration fund, parking lot capital fund, sewer operating fund, sewer assessment fund, sewer capital fund. And we also primary for the, well, yeah, this is a precursor for the sidewalk pedestrian safety infrastructure advisory committee. We'll maybe talk about that later. Okay, so we're primary on all of those things. Does anybody disagree or have any input as to whether or not there should be something else of consideration as primary for Public Works? Don't all speak at once?
Rob, this is a guideline. It's not.
Yeah, this is, yeah.
Right, it's not automatic.
Yeah, as Jack explained it, he said, this is a living document. Okay?
Okay.
So, yeah, if we have some epiphany, whatever, a month from now, and we realize that there's something else that we should be primary or secondary, we can always go back to them and say, okay, we have something else,
Yeah,
right?
that's where I was going, is to make sure that this isn't
Yeah.
cast in stone. And
No, it's not,
that it doesn't.
it is
move
not
around.
cast in stone.
My understanding from the Rules Committee meeting is that it still goes before rules and still gets assigned, but this is the general guidelines.
Okay.
Reason to
Bring a little more
deviate.
transparency to that process.
Yes. Others can be added.
But it's rules that's deciding both individual instances as well as adopting this as their guideline?
My understanding.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Because they want to, part of the inspiration for this was to kind of have, for lack of a better phrase, like a cheat sheet for the Rules Committee. That if an issue comes up, that they can go and say, okay, who should be primary on this? Well, let me go back and look at the list here. Public Works, yeah, they should be the ones to take this on.
Also, I think part of it is to help guide committees on what they should be tracking, following.
Mhm.
It's not a surprise, oh gosh, this came up.
Well, in the past, there have been things that have come up and it's assigned to, I don't know, what I would think was the wrong committee or the obvious committee didn't get, wasn't primary and so it's fine. As long as they have a guideline and it's fine.
Okay, secondary responsibilities, ARPA fund, which is really a moot point, I think, at this point.
I thought so.
I'm not surprised
I
by
would
it,
eliminate
I'm not
it.
sure why it's even there. Great Island Management Fund. Secondary. To finance and budget.
So that makes sense from a fund point of view, but I would think that Great Island operations and decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that hasn't been decided yet.
Well, that's the,
Yeah.
once that's decided, I would hope that we have a seat at the table, right? I mean,
Kind of circling around to that thing called governance.
Right.
Yeah, which, to my knowledge, has not been decided or put in any particular organizational structure, to my knowledge, at least not yet. I am kind of anxious about that,
Still
though.
managed by the Great Island Advisory Committee.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, there are some other, all right, so Park and Rec, Ed Gentile is ex officio to Park and Rec, because there's a relationship between Public Works and Park and Rec with the personnel and equipment. They all chip in and help each other out, and they certainly come to Ed from time to time for assistance from Park and Rec. So by default, you know, because that is Public Works, some of that also falls to Public Works Committee. Okay, so we are a secondary to Parks and Rec Commission because of the relationship. Okay, that's how it's listed here. I don't have an objection with it. I don't see us really being, you know, called upon all that often per se, but we are listed. Secondary with Finance and Budget.
I think that sort of makes sense.
Okay.
Because when, you know, they need equipment or they need repairs or that sort of thing, that it's gonna tax Public Works Department, then, you know, to the extent that we have an opinion about it, I think we should be given the opportunity to express it.
Okay. That's the only, let me see here. The only other one is, again, they list ARPA, which is,
So-
again, which is kind of a moot point.
Well, it makes sense on the Parks and Rec, it's actually not on our tab in the spreadsheet at the bottom.
As a secondary,
Correct.
it's a good point.
It's listed on Park and Rec, but not on ours.
Good point. All right.
I missed that. I'm trying to think back over, can anyone in this room remember instances where we were secondary on something involving Park and Rec? But you mentioned equipment.
Honestly, I can't recall any.
No.
Equipment or installations and that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
I mean, they get equipment every year, just like
Yeah.
Public Works says. I don't remember ever being
But aren't they?
secondary. I'm not saying we should or shouldn't, I'm just
They
trying to.
co-garage them, they,
Yeah, it's the sharing of the resources.
sharing of the
Right.
resources,
Yeah, I
The
think
garage is when
only
it came
up.
connection
The garage is a
when
big-
they were
the
garage
doing
is a
the
big
whole recycling center.
which makes sense.
Yeah,
And they just redid the floor in that.
that's where it came up. It's in the
Mm-hmm.
garage where that's shared space.
Thank you. I'll go back to Jack. Okay, so that's Park and Rec, Public Works. We do have, I think, some overlap with, do we? I'm looking, hold on. No, we do not. Okay, so, just as a point of information, I see nothing listed as us being any secondary with planning, zoning, and housing. Okay. The only thing that concerns me about that is drainage.
Well, even if it's not listed, it doesn't mean that if an issue comes up, that we can't have an opinion and express that in the process. This is just from, I mean, the way I'm reading this is it's from an assignment standpoint
Yeah.
at the outset of whatever activity is about to take place. But we, I mean, any of us can stand up and speak, maybe not for the committee, but if the committee wants to express itself, then, you know, we can do that.
But to your point, Rolf, if flood mitigation is not an identified area of responsibility that's assigned to someone, flood mitigation probably should be, and we think that we should be primary or secondary for flood mitigation.
Well, I'm looking to see if there's anything listed here with planning, zoning, and housing that would have any relationship to.
The one that I see is Aquifer Protection Agency.
Well, that's a separate thing. Isn't that one of our boards is designated as our Aquifer Protection Agency?
Yeah, planning and zoning is listed as as primary, planning, zoning, and housing for aquifer protection. I wonder if that has more to do with wells, private wells.
Yeah, it's not drainage.
Okay.
But in the past, we've had, as a focus area, flooding mitigation is one of the areas we want to deal with. So flood, again, if there are flood mitigation projects in the future, that should probably be an area that's assigned to us, either primary or secondary.
Yes, because I see, I don't really see anything under Public Works that is specific, well, all right, it says Public Works is the board committee activity, and Public Works RTM committee is the primary with that, so I guess that covers drainage for sure. 'Cause
So
that's
Ralph, are
definitely-
most of those committees, commissions, boards, as opposed to areas of interest, flooding? I don't have the list in front of me.
Yeah, most of
Sounds
them are,
like
most of them are
boards,
listed,
commissions,
yeah,
ARPA.
they're mostly
Yeah,
listed
I read it, I
as
remember
board,
seeing
board,
it.
But
commission, or
I looked
activity.
at it, I
But
have it
that,
open.
I'm recalling almost all of them being boards, commissions, funds,
Yeah.
like existing entities, if you will.
Yeah, yeah.
And not areas of interest, concepts.
I get you.
And it cuts on that because I don't think we have a flood of anything,
Right.
no board. Versus they did put on there the sidewalks, because there might be a sidewalk.
Yes, yes,
Advisory committee at some point.
Right.
That I think is the theme.
yeah, I get you. Okay, and last, that I brought up, where I saw us listed, in finance and budget, again, ARPA fund, Public Works, so, which again, I think is a moot point. So that's that. Any other?
So I just added the Parks and Rec as a secondary.
Yeah,
notes,
yeah, I'll have to go
so
back.
It wasn't in the tab.
I'll go back to Jack on that. You can put that in the notes. Okay. Focus areas. On our last meeting, we did a number of focus area assignments, but we did not complete the whole thing. We have a number of new members that I think need to be involved. So I'm going to start from the beginning again. We have Mark and Jeff Kraus for Finance and Budget, and that's coming up real soon. Is there anybody else who would have an interest to get involved with Finance and Budget? The other areas of focus, just before we ask you to step up, we have roads and sidewalks, dams and bridges, the recycling facility, which I would also like to consider as also related to resiliency, okay, for the
Called
town.
it sustainability last
Or
year.
sustainability, yeah. Yeah, because they've reconstituted the sustainability committee. Okay, drainage and flooding, the sewer commission, town buildings and land, coastal waters, and town plan of conservation development, and appendix B. So, starting again, finance and budget, currently assigned Mark and Jeff. Anybody else have any interest in getting involved with the finance and budget aspect of public works?
Question, Ralph,
Sure.
do we have any that don't have coverage or are light?
No, we have
Okay.
at least a person for each one of these.
I'll
Roads
do
and s-
coastal waters with Vince again.
Okay,
Did that last year.
Yeah.
yeah, so, all right, so coastal waters, Vince, we already had, kind of had him put down, but
Right, and I'll do
we'll
it
we'll
as
add
well. I've done it
Jeff,
the
Jeff
last couple
Hudson
years.
for that, okay? Roads and sidewalks, which again will be kind of a hot potato with the possible formulation of a pedestrian infrastructure committee. Okay. Dams and bridges,
I'll do that.
all right, so you'd be partners on that with Rich?
You ideally want two or more than two?
Well,
or?
there's enough different areas of focus where, and with the number of people we have in the committee, yeah, I would think we would not want to have them two.
You don't need three, but two's good.
Two is good, yeah, three would be.
So that's roads and sidewalks. Or
But
we on to dams and bridges?
Dams and bridges.
Yeah.
Did I miss roads and sidewalks?
So
You-
roads
you
and
didn't need
sidewalks
to
is me
list
and
those
Pat.
Okay.
Right,
Pat.
yeah, we don't have a third on that, not at this time at least. Dams and bridges, you said you would be willing to serve on that, I'm sorry? All right, can you say your name just for the record?
All for
Paul Ferrone, okay,
So that's dams and bridges.
correct.
So the hot topics there this year are progress on Hanson
Hanson Road Bridge,
and repairs on Gorham Pond.
repairs on the Gorham
Springs and
Pond
Dam.
Bridge and Dam. Yeah, there's that's a double whammy. I don't think they really started any of that work.
They didn't.
Hanson Road's
They're
going.
having trouble with their math.
It's been going on
Yeah,
forever.
the boxes are in.
Oh, are they?
The boxes
They're
are
in?
in.
I thought they were supposed to have pedestrian access the entire time.
Right, this is Hanson Road we're talking
There's
about?
definitely not.
No, not yet.
My son runs that way.
I did that and had to go hopping over that.
Okay. Wait, okay, recycling facility,
Sustainability, can I
you wanna
do that?
piggyback with
Yeah.
Eric on that?
Yep.
Okay, so that's Carolyn Lewis, did I say that correctly?
Close enough.
Okay,
Which one was that, Carolyn?
Sustainability or recycling.
right.
That's
Yeah.
distinct from, that includes the transfer station. the whole-
Yes, that includes the transfer station.
shop.
Swap shop.
Recycling, the swap shop, and
that's
the
exciting.
sustainability, Committee on Sustainability.
Just making sure.
You wanna see who owns that too.
Okay. Drainage and flooding, last meeting we had Ian and Patrick Parr
Yeah.
step up on that, okay?
You
Any-
were on it last year,
anyone else
Rolf,
has-
was your Al.
Any interest in that, drainage and flooding? I certainly am sensitive to that, I'll say that for sure. Okay, I'll move on.
I do, but do you need a third? Because I'm happy to jump on the next one.
Well, let's go through the rest of them and then we can double back, okay? Drainage and flooding we just discussed. Sewer Commission,
I would jump on that one.
you wanna piggyback
So-
on Frank?
Yeah, so Tony Lorena.
Tony, okay, very good, thank you, Tony.
What's yours?
Yeah, the thing that's going on there is they're really starting to try and come up with a way to start to nail down the illicit sump pump hookups. We'll maybe touch on that later. Town buildings and land, Patrick Parr and Mark Adaletta. Okay, and of course, the land ties in with the Great Island for sure. It's definitely happening. We talked about coastal waters with Vincent. Town plan of conservation and development, I'll continue to stay on that, and I'll give you a little update on that later.
What's that one again? I'm sorry.
Town plan of conservation and development,
Conservation and development.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
That's just you?
at this point.
What's
Someone else
involved
has-
in that? What are the-
Well, every 10 years, the town is obligated to develop a town plan of conservation and development. It's a pretty large document. I think it's in 3 sections, the one that was done back in 2015.
It's a state requirement.
It is a state
It is
requirement, it's a
state
state statute that must be satisfied by the town, and it's primarily handled by the Planning and Zoning Commission and the related town staff. And they basically go through the entire town and how the town is laid out, all the different zoning, and what the town is planning to do to further promote issues related to drainage and quality of water and that sort of thing in terms of infrastructure and utilities, zoning, where's our business zoning, where's our residential zoning, so on and so forth, multi-use zoning. And then development, what are our plans to further, and parks and recreation, okay, we have so many parks and what it offers to the community. And then, of course, how do we want to go forward with all of those things for the town? So planning, housing comes up as a particular issue of interest that, the state has now started its new session this week, and certainly affordable housing is definitely one of the things that's on their plate. Of course, the continued effort that the town is under right now for drainage, both stormwater drainage as well as sewer drainage, so on and so forth. And so it comes together as a guiding light for the town for the next 10 years, and it's used in various capacities. I know planning and zoning, there are numerous times where development would apply for a building, and they would cite certain particulars from the town plan of conservation that says that, given the zoning that's been identified in the town plan of conservation, given the nature of this development that we would like to put in here, it is in line with the town plan of conservation, therefore you should allow us to go forward with this project, so on and so forth, yada, yada, yada. Did I miss anything?
Well, good. It's just to help set priorities on what the town is targeting over the next 10 years.
Yeah, it's kind of visionary, but it's also specific to how the town is organized and formulated at the present time, okay?
It touches on really every area of the town.
Yeah.
I mean, every part of our government is involved in, you know, what goes into that. So it's a very all-encompassing. It's actually worth spinning through. I mean, it is a pretty big document, but it's actually.
I have it on my computer. If you guys want,
It's on the town website.
you know, it's also on the town website, you know, I can send it around. There's a lot in there. I don't think I can send it all in one email. I think I'd have to send it like 3 times with each section. And then Appendix B, which is Jack Davis's and Frank Kemp have been working on that, and I think they'll be coming up with something soon. But I've been in touch, Jack and I've been in contact about that. So I think we got everybody on something.
John Sartorius was the one name on here?
Yes, John, we missed him in the last meeting, and he's still outstanding in this meeting as well. You're absolutely correct. So,
So he's not here, so we assign him to.
Sewer.
Permanent secretary.
well, he mentioned,
Exactly, better.
You missed 2 meetings.
But he did the minutes from the last.
He
meeting.
did.
He did.
Fine
He
job.
was here, no, he was here at the last meeting.
Clearly.
he was here, yeah, he was here.
Oh,
We
yeah.
just missed him, that's all.
That's right, we missed him, we
He
said
was
we'll
very
get you next
quiet, he was
time.
sitting there
Thanks
very
for coming.
quiet.
There you go, John.
That's right. Welcome.
So just leave him off the list for the moment?
Yeah, I'd really like to hear him speak for himself. I don't want to
Well, you
really
can just ask him.
speak for
Send him a
him.
note.
I sent him an email, because he let me know that he couldn't make this meeting this evening. I sent him, I said, well, let me know what your interests are, and I haven't heard back.
Okay.
Can I review roads and sidewalks is the one I didn't catch? Is that one?
Well, there's no change. It
No
was
change.
me
Okay.
and-
Roads and sidewalks,
Frank and me.
Patrick and Frank.
Okay.
Yeah, no change there.
Just no change.
Okay?
Yeah, there is no change.
Okay.
You guys have locked up roads and sidewalks.
Okay. All right, so we have the meeting coming up in February with Ed. So I'd just like to, you know, get a little roundtable about what do we really want to ask him, given the fact that he's already finished his budget? Or do we just want to have him make a presentation, tell us what's in the budget from his perspective and what his particular interests are? I mean, how do we want to approach this thing? Anybody got any ideas? You know?
Well, I think it's partly what you just said, like what are your priorities and what are the big changes? Right? I think we're all reasonably familiar with like what his mandate is, right? So that's mostly unchanged. So to me, part one is okay. What from your priority, Ed, from your perspective, Ed, like what are the big priorities and what are the major changes? And then from our side,
Right.
I think there are a couple of areas that we have raised to him as
Okay.
important issues to us. You know, I'm going to beat my usual drum and say pedestrian infrastructure and sidewalks as one, and sustainability and defensibility of the sewer system. Again, we know that many years ago, was it 2012? We had nearly had a flooding event that took out some of the pump stations. So again,
They've been hardened since then.
Yes, they have.
right,
been
so I guess
hardened.
it'd be helpful to understand what that looks
Yeah,
like.
been
And I
hardened.
know they've been working on it. I don't want to imply they haven't, right? But
I would like to know kind of how it's going, the whole switch where we used to get paid for our recycling and now we're paying. and-
Paying it out?
Yeah, how is that coming together?
How is recycling going?
How's it going? Yeah, are the costs in line with what we anticipated, or is there anything out of whack there?
I think he's actually gonna have good news on that, if you can believe that. Now, I don't know that you're gonna see it in what you pay to have your
Yeah.
recycling
Yeah,
picked up,
that-
but he's actually making money right now in the recycling center, but I'd rather let him explain that. He can explain it much better.
Commodities trader now?
I'm sorry.
trading scrap copper.
Right.
Well,
So
we
those-
adjusted our fees that we charge people to use
Yep,
the
yep,
dump.
yep. We used to get money for our recycling. That is stopped. Now we have to pay to have our recycling picked up. Okay,
Correct, but we course corrected what we charge like landscaping companies and others and
Yep.
and
Yes.
citizens, because we
Yes.
were too low, we
yep,
raised
they
it.
raised those up.
So that's where, I wanna know, is it working as anticipated?
Okay.
Is it?
Okay.
But to your point, Ian, that doesn't mean that the market has changed for recycling in any material way. We're just charging our own people more,
Correct.
or our own service providers who are servicing our town citizens more, who are, I'm sure, passing that cost along. Right?
Correct.
So we're just collecting more money from our citizens as opposed to having some exogenous benefits to our benefit. Am I understanding right?
Yes, but the only color I would add is at least my understanding of the part of the rationale for raising it was we were under market and therefore other municipalities and people not with us were dumping on us.
Got it.
Ah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that clarification.
Yeah. Again, I don't want to steal Ed's thunder, but he, despite that, he's getting quite a bit of carriers coming in and leaving their waste with us.
Really?
Yeah, and it's being rerouted back out, and in the process of all that, he's making some money.
He's arbitraging our MSW.
Okay, so I have three items.
Who says there's no opportunities left in this world?
So Rob, the three are the recycling issue, what are the other two?
Well, the pedestrian infrastructure,
Mhm.
and where is that going, so to speak, and what's his,
Well, what are his priorities?
what are his priorities in that respect, and I'm sure he'll have.
Are you concerned we're gonna get I haven't presented the budget yet, I don't want to.
Well,
You know,
yeah, that's the
the
thing,
bu-
he
the
may,
budget
he
discussion
may
will
say,
be-
you know, on certain things, he may say, I
Well, the
I
budget
prefer
discussion
not
will be the
to
week
comment
before.
until
Oh,
the
will it
budget
be the week
comes
before?
out.
All right, that's right. Yeah, this meeting's after the,
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah,
Can we ask him how
yeah,
many?
just a
Today?
matter of days.
yeah.
A matter of
Yeah.
So
days.
this will be
Then we
different
can
than
ask-
asking, we used to ask in November, December.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
My burning question is, how many days will the new elevator at the Darien train station work before it breaks?
I like how you're gonna calculate in days.
I think over under.
Yeah, she didn't say weeks, she didn't say months.
Even better question.
You optimist, you.
Will that project ever be?
Well, do I put it down?
Does it have anything to do with that?
Perhaps frame it as an update.
That's
I don't know.
even town?
He has nothing to do with it. It's Metro North.
Frame, you know, that's how I frame
I
it.
mean, the town is doing
We saw
ancillary
that.
things like sidewalks, but I don't think that the town is in charge of.
But he should have an update on what the.
Yeah, but he might have.
Oh, I'm sure he's got an idea how it's going, and it definitely is not going as they had hoped for, I can say that for sure.
Yeah.
Passageway gets narrower and narrower every time I go.
All right, I have 4 items. Or-
Okay, sorry, so pedestrian infrastructure, recycling, what was it?
Well,
Update
Frank
on
brought
that.
up the question about the sewer system.
Hardening the sewer
Yeah.
system against flooding
Okay,
and extreme events.
okay. What was the fourth then?
Well, the
Train
recycling,
station?
we just
The train
discussed.
The
station.
train station.
Train
just
station.
And the
update.
4th is the train
Just
station.
update on the project.
I'd like to have one more, if we have
I
it.
mean, all the flooding stuff with Saltbox and Tilly and, I mean, I don't know. that
You
was
wanna go down,
important to me,
you wanna
but
put that down?
Yeah, I would do that, and then I would add high priority items for paving.
You know, I'd like to suggest that we not only ask about the salt box flooding project. By the way, there's a new wrinkle on that. There's a residence on
Oh, yeah, there were a few.
What is it?
number 3, I think, is the.
The telepathy didn't work for me.
Can
Can you put more words in that?
I think it was either yesterday or the day before, the Environmental Protection Commission had a hearing, or was it that, or was it planning and zoning? I think it was planning and zoning, the more I think about it. The people at 3 Seagate Road have a driveway that's got a small bridge that goes over the little brook that comes down from Saltbox and above. Okay, it's part of the drainage. It's not the only part of the drainage, but it's a part of the drainage. And that eventually goes out into Holly Pond. Okay. When I think about it, I think it was APC. And they're in the midst of a discussion about replacing their bridge that goes to their home. Okay. And apparently in heavy rainstorms, that bridge floods over. Okay. And that overflow water also then apparently goes to the house next to theirs, and they're quite upset about getting flooded out. So the bridge has to be replaced. No one has an argument with that. The question is, how is it gonna get done, and what kind of bridge is gonna go in its place? And so once that question hit the floor, it then immediately led to, okay, well, we don't know where we are with the salt box drainage project. Okay, so the two kind of dovetail into each other. And so it's now getting a little bit more complicated with this situation at 3 Seagate Road.
But it looks like 5 Seagate would also have
Well,
a bridge
yeah,
over.
well,
as
3
part of
Seagate
their
is
driveway.
apparently where the problem is, but when it floods over, the water then pushes over into 5 Seagate Road, okay? And so they're not happy people right now as well.
Which,
so.
for the record, is directly south of 3 Seagate.
Correct.
And therefore
Correct.
downstream of.
Correct. So that salt box project is
This
taking
wasn't,
on a
the
new.
engineers and the planners didn't know about this?
Well, I don't,
Or it was like scope creep?
I think the owners of 3 Seagate, bought the house without realizing the condition of that bridge.
Okay.
And since moving in and living there now, they realize that the bridge definitely needs to be replaced. And so it's turning into a whole thing. And the salt box project will have an influence on that situation. How it all ends up, I have no idea. But that's happening. So I would also add, with regards to flooding, that we could ask if he could give us also an update on the Tilly Pond
Well, the two studies, right, there's Tilly Pond and then the,
Salt box.
salt box.
well, wasn't there the other study we did further down,
Well, there was the Cummings Brook across West Avenue, but they pretty much concluded that there wasn't much they could do about
oh,
that.
okay, I think that's what I was gonna.
So other than that, the two ones that are in process right now are the salt box and the Tilly Pond. The Tilly Pond is with a whole nother set of piping that's gonna go through town and go out to the Goodwives River. That's a huge project and requiring tunneling under the Metro-North Railroad. So that's a big one. So I'd like to ask on both of them. So I think that's enough right there.
Well, you mentioned the culvert under Metro North Railroad, which one were you talking about?
The Tilly Pond.
Tilly Pond, not the one at Norwood Heights.
Right, the one on the Road Heights, is there a project going on?
Yeah, there's a
done.
state
What on
project.
Maple Avenue
That's-
is done.
Yeah, but that's going
gonna
under
be done.
95 as
Yeah.
opposed to.
Yes,
I think they
that's
spit the
another
hook on anything north of that.
Right, but
or
there's still the
upstream.
part on the south side near the two
That's not
houses.
gonna happen until 27.
What's that? We talking about the
The-
relining of the culvert under
Yeah.
I-95?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That I believe has to be completed in 2026. In fact, they were supposed to start to list for bids in a December ad. Yeah,
Okay.
so it's closer than you might
But
think.
that's a state project, right?
That is a state project. There's really not
But
anything
it
we can do.
affects,
Oh, yeah.
it affects us upstream.
Oh, yeah.
And
And
downstream.
we had our say on that.
Yeah,
2 cycles ago.
Frank was involved.
I mean, we were fairly extensively involved, and they made their engineers available for a couple of Zoom calls.
Is that what that was?
Yeah, and, I mean, well, look, so they took our feedback, I don't know if they changed anything on that basis, I mean, we were basically trying to urge them to expand the capacity and expand the size of what they were putting in. And they said, oh, thanks for your feedback, we're gonna do what we're gonna do.
I was very impressed with their non-answers.
Exactly. They're very polite.
Yes.
They did share some extensive hydrodynamical modeling with us, which was, on the one hand, interesting to look at. It was at the north end of what I could understand, but Craig Flaherty was able to make much more sense of that.
Yes, he came in and he challenged them on a number of things in their reporting, particularly the grade of the pipe.
Mhm.
Right. And it turns out that, yeah, they had, in different parts of their reporting, they had two different angles of descent, if you will, of the pipe. And Craig said, I don't think you can have two different
A straight line.
angles of drainage on that pipe, so they had to go back and regroup on that one.
I think the other, just as we're on that project very briefly, the other concern we had was that at the outflow, there was gonna be a new catch basin. And they were
Splash.
gonna put, what they were calling riprap, which is
Riprap.
basically
And the splash
broken
pool.
broken up rocks that would be deflecting the energy of
This
potentially
water.
more water with more force and velocity. And we were concerned that that would be a disturbance to the adjacent properties. And they said, no, we've done our work and we think we're fine. So they think they're fine. I mean,
Yeah. We won't really know until they finish the project and
Right.
when the
And it
next,
rains.
Cable comply.
and when a big storm comes in.
Right, we're gonna have some big storm at some point.
See what happens. That's a hell of a way to find out, but that's kind of where we are. As we've always been doing, you know, we have the focus areas. I've received some very positive feedback from other members of the RTM about how Public Works is organized. And they think the approach that we're taking with assigning the different focus areas is good. But frankly, it's nothing new to the Public Works Committee. We've been doing this for years, okay? It's maybe that they're just starting to notice, okay? I think, you know, the review of the 2015 PAC report might have been something that brought that more to light, the way that we looked into something from the past and pursued it.
Only 10 years later.
Yeah. So I don't know, does anybody with the focus areas that are assigned have anything that they'd like to report, finance and budget, roads and sidewalks, et cetera? Anybody have anything you wanna put out there for our knowledge? That's part of the reason why we have the focus areas, is so that we have these assignments, people who are specialized to know and understand these areas, and that when we meet, that they educate not just ourselves here in the committee, but also anybody who's watching from the public, TV 79, so that we can all be aware of what's happening in town. Okay?
Rolf, I haven't talked to Vincent lately, but you're probably closer to this. Has there been an update on what we're doing or not doing in terms of dredging the harbor?
Well,
And I guess also a discussion around the Pear Tree Point Beach parking lot? I have not seen an update, but you monitor that stuff more closely than I do.
I know that, I'm fairly certain that the Board of Selectmen will have that in as part of their budget, but I am not clear on them having a clear number to put in the budget, because I don't think they've yet really gone out for bids, okay?
But do I
They had-
remember right, don't we have a timing issue there with
Yes,
the
yes,
licensing or?
Yes, that has to be completed by 2028. So there is still time, but, you know, the work that's gonna go on there is very seasonal in nature. You can't be, you know, bringing in front-end loaders in the middle of July, okay, at Pear Tree Point Beach. So that puts a constraint on the timeline. But the biggest issue is they have to get all of their permitting
Right, and I
in
think
line,
they were
and
trying
that
to do that.
has not yet been accomplished.
Okay.
And they also have to go before the Planning and Zoning Commission with their plan. And that also has not yet occurred. So, and I think that's coming up soon with the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I would ask you to keep your eyes open on the Planning and Zoning Commission's agenda.
Okay.
Okay, and how that goes, I mean, I know they're gonna try and accommodate Parks and Rec as much as they possibly can, but at the same time, you know, they have to make sure that all the ducks are in line, you know, the EPC, you know, Department of Environmental Protection, the Army Corps of Engineers. I mean, it's a big project. In terms of, so yes, they're gonna remove the parking lot as it exists now. They're gonna raise the whole thing up by a couple of feet. They're gonna move the beach further back and in the process eliminate some parking spaces, so the parking lot in the end will be smaller than what it is today. They're gonna redo the ramp, because if you raise up the parking, you've gotta redo the ramp. And then they're gonna dredge from the ramp all the way down and around where the boat club is, out to about where the dock is for the gas.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where the dredging for that project will end. Now, going on at the same time, or somewhat at the same time, is another dredging project that's being considered to then go from the boat club out through the channels past the Norotan Yacht Club.
Right.
Okay, but that's a separate planning dredging
Yeah, I
project.
remember that.
But they're trying to coordinate the two, because if you're gonna bring someone in to do the dredging around to the boat club, you might as well have them continue and finish off the rest as well at the same time. And so how they're gonna pull all that together is the challenge.
All right, I'll get updated on it.
Yeah, it's a real deal.
Can that material be used
Huh?
partly to raise?
Well, the suspicion is that the material going from the ramp around to the boat club is not gonna be something that can be reused per se. It's contaminated to the point where it cannot be taken out to Long Island Sound and dumped. They're gonna have to bring it up on land and then transport it out.
And dry it.
And that's gonna be a costly part of the project.
That's the biggest
My understanding is that the whatever, seabed from the boat club past the Norotan Yacht Club is not as soiled, if you will, and may qualify for just taking it out to Long Island Sound. Okay.
I mean, I'm asking the same question you are. What is it contaminated with? Is it just oil from boats? Is it
Well-
something worse? Is it?
The best answer I can give you is that, you know, the runoff from both Stony Brook and the Goodwives River both come into Holly Pond. Okay,
It's not
so.
just in near water, if you go over to the boat club during a rainstorm, if the docks are in, you can actually see it if the docks aren't in, and look over towards, I guess, the bay. There's a huge runoff pipe that drops
Okay.
right into that zone. And that's been there forever. And it actually, I've asked people to figure out why that still goes on, but that's sucking up fertilizer and everything else coming down, near water coming all the way across. It does not get, on a heavy rain, it's not getting stopped, filtered, anything. And that's been going on for probably generations. And then to Rolf's point, everything coming down.
From Goodwives and
Goodwives,
Stony
that all,
Brook.
if you take a boat, if you take a paddleboard and go all the way towards the bridge,
Mhm.
you run out of water on a paddleboard before you get to the bridge. Not at like at high tide, I can get, you know, all the way up, but anything other than high tide, I can put a paddle
In the mud?
into the mud,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that's all coming down.
Interesting, that's all like sediment.
It's
and-
Oh, yeah.
years and
Oh,
years
yeah.
of just crap.
But that's not
It's
part of the
got-
dredging project, though.
No,
is it?
not, but what I'm saying is, it's that ultimately ends up in that same zone.
Yeah,
by
that's
the boat-
Yeah.
contributes
by the
to
boat
what
club.
is going to
And-
be dredged.
Yeah.
And that's coming from I-95. And all of the stuff that comes down that watershed. And this has been going on for generations. So what's in that they're worried about is all the
Schmutz.
pesticides.
I think technically
Yeah,
the
I think
schmutz.
that's
Yeah,
what it is,
Well,
yeah.
but it's a lot, I mean, and it's getting quite deep.
And the Department of Environmental Protection also has tightened up on their standards.
Oh, huge, huge.
Okay,
Otherwise
so-
you would have taken it out to Long Island
Yeah.
Sound and just done it.
What
They're gonna
was
pull it, dry
okay
it.
20 years ago is not okay now, okay? So that's part of it as well. So, no other comments about your focus areas?
I have a comment.
Okay,
Just, I looked at there's a meeting for the advisory committee on sustainability yesterday. I didn't watch the video yet. But just looking at their agenda, I'll just note a couple things. So
okay.
they're looking for a social media coordinator, which I
Social media coordinator.
think they were looking for that previously, but I'm not. Somebody was looking for a social media coordinator.
Okay, well, I know the town has one.
Maybe it was the town, okay. They do have an open position. One of the action items for 2025 was the growth in the food scrap program,
Yes.
so that's good. And then something else that they were looking in 2025 was planning townwide events, educational Earth Day things, so typical.
Okay, thank you. So we went through the, committee assignments, primary, secondary responsibilities, and in conjunction with that, the development of Appendix B is in progress. Jack Davis contacted me last week to say that, because when that whole Appendix B thing came up, what was it, maybe even 3 years ago now? you know, we had submitted our feedback about it, some of the wording that needed to be changed and updated. And so he wants to meet and go over it again, because it's been however many years, so I think he wants to refresh his notes and his files and his memory about, you know, what it is that we're looking for. So I'll be meeting with him and having that conversation. But they seem to be now really moving, whereas before it seemed to be pretty quiet.
I'm sorry, remind me what Appendix B is?
Well,
Sorry, I just.
No, I'm not laughing either, like a boy. That's not one
I thought it was
sentence.
after A, and
Get
I.
comfortable, Jeff.
well,
Sorry, I
with
gotta go.
You know, with respect to the RTM, you know, the Appendix B is defining what the various committees are and what I'm trying to choose my words carefully, what powers and or capabilities do the standing committees have in the RTM to conduct themselves? And I'll just give you the example of the PIAC committee, okay? That was something that we did as a committee to re-examine something that was done in the past to see if it still had any validity or not, so on and so forth. And there were some people that didn't receive our initiative all that well. They thought that we were maybe stepping out of bounds.
Overstepping.
Okay?
But that,
So-
Rolf, is in line with when we established the original PAC back in 2015. We did that, we initiated that in this committee by passing a resolution calling on the selectmen to establish the PAC, right? Because we thought it was important, and therefore we put it in there on their plate to say, hey, this is something that we as Public Works think is important. If you agree, here's the steps you should follow. And there were people who pushed back on us then and said, well, you shouldn't be telling the Board of Selectmen what to do. We're not, you know, to the response now is the same as then. We're not telling you what to do, we're telling you what we think the priorities are. You can act or not, right?
So this relook, if you will, at the Appendix B is to craft the wording so that a standing committee head like myself or any of the other committees can sit here with confidence and know what we can do, okay, without whatever ruffling the feathers, what powers we're given to look into things, okay? And I personally welcome it because I don't want to be sitting up here and having us pursue things and not having support, okay? As we operate today, we're still under the existing present Appendix B. So if we are going to pursue something, we are to go to the board of the Rules Committee, let them know that we are going to be looking into this and asking for their understanding and approval to move forward, okay?
Really?
Yeah. That is what, at the end of the day, is what happened with that PIAC committee. That had to go to a vote with the Rules Committee. You correct me on that. Yeah.
There are other instances of this too. I mean, when the Blight Now Commission
Yes.
was established, I think it originated with PZ&H or TGS&A, and the levels of authority on who could be called, there were some fairly involved meetings that took place, and what is the authority of the committee to explore and investigate and figure out versus the Board of Selectmen and what the RTM's authority is. So Appendix B, it's the part of our town charter that empowers the RTM, do I have that right? And what defines what our authority is. So it's not, some people think it's just the purse strings, you know, that we have to approve the budget. Others believe that because we're elected from far and wide across town, that we represent, you know, a wider opinion of, and are meant to express the opinion of our constituents. So, I mean, that's the way I've heard it discussed.
It's going to be interesting to see what the final wording is that they come up with, okay? And that's what's in the works. So stay tuned.
So this is being rewritten by, or
Well,
modified?
TGS&A is the primary. Jack Davis is involved with Frank Kemp to help put this thing together. Those were the two gentlemen that came to us 3 years ago with what was then called the Matrix.
Why is Jack involved?
I'm not sure I can answer that question. Okay,
Because I think he wanted to be.
yeah, I'll go with that. One last thing, and then unless anybody has anything else,
I can provide a brief update. on
Okay, very good.
under the category of buildings in town. As it relates to Great Island, there was a special session of the Great Island Advisory Committee last night, which I'd encourage you to listen to. If you recall, the whole process is divided into a roughly 1-year vision plan phase and then master plan concept phase. And we're nearing the end of that vision plan phase. And I'm choosing my words carefully, vision plan, because the vision, we all know what a vision statement is a vision plan. And the words living document were used last night. Someone here used that term. But a first draft of this vision plan was presented last night. And it's the culmination of 2 workshops that were held, both here in Town Hall and on Great Island, where a lot of information was gathered, especially in the second workshop, as far as more targeted questions from, I can't remember the exact number of responses, but it was well over 1,000, maybe 1,500-ish. And so a lot of that feedback was used to start the skeleton of a vision plan. And so you will see some back and forth input from the committee members, the 7 or 8 committee members. And so it's the first document, if you will. It's a draft, and it says draft on it about 600 times. But it's the start.
It's happening.
It's starting to happen. The idea being is to get this refined, get the vision and statement and the vision plan, which is kind of the supporting detail that goes with this, as to get something kind of finalized before going into phase 2, which is the master plan and concept phase. So I'd encourage you to look at it. It has several major areas. Access, it speaks to access. One of the things that came out in the data from the workshops was how important access is to the people.
parking.
And parking.
Yeah, that's part
came
of
up like
access.
4 times.
Yes, yes, and there's some conversation, and there'll be more around that. Coastal regulations, coastal is a category that kind of falls into that. Preservation and ecology are touched on. So kind of you're starting to see some of the major categories starting to take shape, informed by the workshops and the back and forth with the committee and the consultant over the past, what's been about 3-4 months, give or take. So it's a good, if there's one to tune into, I think that's one to take a look at.
Was the document
Other
itself-
categories is,
Sorry, was the document itself part of the, like, can you read the
I
document?
would expect it's gonna be part of the package when it's posted, when
Oh,
the
okay.
minutes are posted.
But just the TV's available now.
Right now, I don't know, it's last night, so I'd be surprised if anything's posted.
If not today, probably tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't know what's posted, because it was less than 24 hours, about 24 hours ago. But there was building code, building preservation, which buildings appear to have architectural significance. Because some of the feedback from the community was that buildings of substantial and material architectural significance, there's an interest in, perhaps. And then ecology, conservation is another category. And then there's some, almost like placeholders kind of put under those, some of the subcategories and topics. So anyway, it's only an hour meeting, it's a special session, but it's the first time that you're starting to see some of the work product. Some folks are frustrated the work product hasn't come out quick enough. Some folks are wondering why we're rushing, so, but, so I encourage you to take a look.
Okay, thank you. Okay, one last thing that I would want to speak to, and that is the town plan of conservation and development. So I placed a phone call to Amy at P&Z, and we have not yet connected, but I also shot off an email to Jeremy Ginsberg, who is planning and zoning for the town of Darien. And they have hired a consultant to start to put together a redrafting of the town plan of conservation. They hired Hardesty and Hanover to assist in preparing the updated town plan of conservation and development. So I asked him, I said, you know, is there any provision for RTM members or committees to meet and give input to the consultant as they work through the drafting of the new plan? And his answer was, there will be opportunities for the general public to get involved and give input to the Planning and Zoning Commission, which is an important part of this project. I will keep you in the loop. So he's basically saying, you can show up to, I guess they're gonna organize some meetings for the general public to meet with this consultant and give their input about the town, where it's at, where we'd like to see it go, that kind of thing. And of course, we could always, you know, partake in that and represent ourselves either as residents or as members of the Public Works Committee if we want to put together a committee message. I think that would be acceptable and appropriate if we want to do that. So I'd ask everybody to, first of all, I definitely would recommend anybody who hasn't read the present day plan of conservation that you do so you get familiar with how all encompassing it is. And then we can, at a future meeting, talk about, you know, what our interests are from a public works perspective in terms of how we want to have that represented in the town plan of conservation, because drainage and flooding is still an ongoing issue, and I don't want to let that get lost, certainly.
In the past, in 2015, when the POCD was done, they did sessions, public sessions, very similar to what the Great Island consultant put together down in where there were boards and, you know, they took lots of input. I'm hoping, I would guess, that this consultant will organize similar things. And
From what I gather, this is not the same consultant that they used last. Apparently, I think the gentleman who was involved last had retired. So they're trying to transfer all the files and records from the last one over to
we're gonna have to
this.
tell them how to do it.
So they're kind of working, you know, to rebuild from that.
Ralph, I wasn't tracking the process as closely the last time this was done.
2015.
Yeah. But it's a process that goes on over a long period of time. I'm wondering, is that a focus area? All of us could have an interest, sure, just like any of these areas we talk about, but to have a constant eyes on what's going on.
Vigil.
Vigil
That's
is the
you.
word. I wasn't thinking
I
vigil,
think
but
that's you.
It was one of the.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're on, you're.
was it on there?
Yeah.
I mean, it's on the list,
Yeah.
you know, I'll
You're holding vigil.
hold vigil on the town plan of conservation. I mean, I've already made contact with
Yeah.
Jeremy.
I think that's a great idea.
I plan on getting involved in it.
Yeah, and I
Okay,
actually want
fine.
to be more in tune. Because in retrospect, it's an influential document.
Oh, yeah, no question.
It's very-
No question.
I'm guessing it's gonna be a little bit more controversial this time around.
I remember it being controversial last time, just me not understanding why it was so dashed and controversial. Now I understand.
Anything else? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion.
Okay, I have a lot of motion. Can I have a second? Jeff? That's it. Okay, everybody in favor? Raise your hand, say aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rolf.